The smell of garlic bread and tomato sauce had become so familiar that Elena barely noticed it anymore. She moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates on her arm like she'd been doing it her whole life. In a way, she had. 10 years of serving food at Romano's Italian restaurant had taught her every shortcut, every customer type, and every way to smile even when her feet were screaming. It was a Thursday evening and the dinner rush was just beginning. Elena tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and approached table 7 with her notepad ready. An older couple sat there, holding hands across the table in that sweet way that made her heart ache a little. She took their order for spaghetti carbonara and chicken parmesan, wrote it down, and headed back to the kitchen. Nobody at Romano's knew much about Elena's life before the restaurant. She was quiet, always on time, and never caused trouble. Her coworkers liked her well enough, but she kept to herself during breaks. She'd eat her sandwich alone, scrolling through her phone or staring out the window at the busy Portland street outside. What they didn't know was that Elena's hands, the same hands that carried heavy trays and scrubbed tables, had once flown across piano keys in concert halls. Those calloused fingers had played for audiences of hundreds. They had touched the same keys that legendary musicians had played. They had created magic, but that was another lifetime. That was before everything fell apart. Elena had been 23 when she got into Juilliard, one of the most famous music schools in the world. Her parents had cried with joy when the acceptance letter came. Her father had lifted her up and spun her around their small living room, laughing like a kid. Her mother had called every relative they had, bursting with pride. The school was everything she'd dreamed of. She practiced 8 hours a day, sometimes more. Her fingers would cramp and her back would ache, but she didn't care. She was learning from the best teachers in the country. She was surrounded by other musicians who understood her passion. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel weird or different for caring so much about music. She was in her final year when her phone rang at 2 a.m. Her mother's voice was shaking so badly that Elena could barely understand the words. Her father had collapsed at work. Heart attack. The hospital. Come home now. Elena took the first bus she could catch. She sat in the back, watching the dark scenery blur past, her mind completely blank. She couldn't think, couldn't feel, just sat there with her hands folded in her lap, the same hands that had been playing Rachmaninoff just hours before. Her father survived that first heart attack, but everything changed. He couldn't work anymore. The medical bills started piling up faster than her mother's salary could cover. Insurance didn't pay for everything, and the things they didn't pay for cost more money than Elena had ever imagined. There were medications, special equipment, follow-up appointments, and 100 other expenses that kept growing. Elena tried to stay in school. She really did. She took a part-time job at a coffee shop near campus, working early mornings before classes. She applied for every scholarship and grant she could find. But it wasn't enough. The bills kept coming, and her parents were drowning in debt. Her mother started working double shifts at the grocery store. Elena could hear the exhaustion in her voice every time they talked on the phone. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. 3 months before graduation, Elena dropped out of Juilliard. She packed up her tiny dorm room, said goodbye to her teachers and friends, and moved back home to Portland. She needed a job that paid immediately, something with tips and steady hours. That's how she ended up at Romano's. At first, she told herself it was temporary, just until her parents got back on their feet, just until the medical debt was under control. She'd save up some money, then figure out how to finish her degree. She'd find a way back to music, but months turned into years and the debt never seemed to shrink. Her father needed more procedures. New problems kept popping up. The temporary job became permanent, and Elena stopped talking about going back to school. Her piano sat in her childhood bedroom, gathering dust. She'd put a blanket over it because looking at it hurt too much. The restaurant had a piano too, funny enough. It sat in the far corner of the dining room, an old upright that the owner's grandmother had owned. It was out of tune and mostly decorative. Sometimes kids would bang on the keys while their parents ate, making random noise that made Elena wince. She never touched it herself, never even went near it if she could help it. Her co-workers sometimes asked why she seemed sad. "You okay, Elena?" they'd say. "You seem far away today." She'd always smile and say she was fine, just tired, didn't sleep well, the usual excuses. How could she explain that every day felt like living in the wrong life? That she felt like an actress playing a role, pretending to be someone she wasn't? At night, alone in her small apartment, she'd sometimes sit on her bed and move her fingers like she was playing invisible keys. Old pieces would run through her mind: Chopin nocturnes, Beethoven sonatas, Debussy preludes. Her fingers remembered every note, even if she hadn't played them in years. The music was still there, locked inside her, with nowhere to go. She'd given up so much, but her parents were alive. Her father could walk around the block now. He could have dinner with the family. He could laugh at bad jokes on TV. That had to be worth it, didn't it? That had to mean something. Still, there were moments when the loss felt crushing. She'd see a concert poster on the street, or hear classical music playing in a store, and her chest would tighten. She'd have to close her eyes and breathe slowly until the feeling passed. 10 years, a decade of her life spent carrying plates and refilling water glasses. She was 32 now, and sometimes she felt ancient. The dreams she'd had at 23 seemed like they'd belonged to a different person entirely. That girl who'd practiced piano 8 hours a day, who'd believed she'd perform on stages around the world, who'd thought anything was possible. Where had she gone? Elena finished her shift that Thursday night, counted her tips, and walked to her car in the employee parking lot. The Portland rain was starting, light drops that caught in the streetlights. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine, watching the rain pattern on the windshield. Tomorrow would be Friday. The restaurant would be busy. She'd smile at customers and recommend the special and pretend that this was enough. She'd pretend that the music inside her didn't exist. She turned the key and drove home through the rainy streets, not knowing that everything was about to change, that one moment, one decision, one performance would crack open the life she'd built and let in the light she'd been hiding from for so long. But that would come tomorrow. Tonight, she was just a waitress driving home in the rain, carrying secrets nobody knew. Friday nights at Romano's were always crazy. The restaurant would fill up by 6 and the noise level would climb until you had to shout to be heard in the kitchen. Elena tied her apron tighter and checked her reflection in the small mirror by the staff room. Dark circles under her eyes. She'd stayed up too late the night before, unable to sleep, her mind wandering to places she usually kept locked away. The evening started like any other. Tables filled up quickly. Elena took orders, delivered food, refilled drinks. Table 3 wanted extra Parmesan. Table 5 needed another high chair for their toddler. Table 8 was celebrating an anniversary. Same routines, different faces. Then the reservation for Table 12 arrived. Elena noticed them right away because there were so many of them. 12 people, 3 generations by the look of it. They were dressed nicely, not fancy but put together like this was a special occasion. At the center of the group was an elderly woman in a purple cardigan, her white hair styled carefully. Her family helped her into her seat with gentle hands and soft voices. The man who seemed to be organizing everything was probably in his 50s, with graying hair and an expensive watch. He had that confident way of moving that rich people often had, like the world generally did what they wanted. But his eyes were kind when he looked at the elderly woman, and Elena could see real love there. "We're celebrating my mother's 80th birthday," he told Elena when she came to take their orders. This was her favorite restaurant back in the day. The old woman smiled vaguely, looking around the room like she wasn't quite sure where she was. Her daughter, sitting next to her, gently rubbed her back and whispered something in her ear. Elena took their orders carefully, making sure to get every substitution and special request. Big tables like this could be stressful, but she'd handled plenty of them. She brought out bread, filled wine glasses, made sure everyone had what they needed. She was heading back to the kitchen with a tray of empty appetizer plates when she heard the man's voice rise slightly. Not angry, but frustrated. He was talking to Tony, the restaurant manager. "I just thought, since there's a piano right there," the man was saying. It would mean so much to her. Music was her whole life. Elena slowed down, pretending to wipe down a nearby empty table so she could hear better. "I'm really sorry," Tony said, looking genuinely apologetic. "It's just decorative, really. None of our staff plays, and it's not even in tune. I wish I could help." "Is there any way to find someone?" the man pressed. "I'd pay, of course. Whatever's fair. My mother was a piano teacher for 40 years. She has dementia now, and most days she doesn't recognize us. But sometimes music brings her back. Even just for a few minutes." Elena's hands froze on the table she was wiping. She could feel her heart starting to beat faster. "There's one piece she taught all her students," the man continued, and Elena could hear his voice cracking slightly. "Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat. She must have played it thousands of times. If she could just hear it one more time on her birthday." Tony shook his head sadly. "I really am sorry. I can see if any of the other servers know someone who plays piano. Maybe we could call them." The man nodded, but Elena could see the disappointment on his face as he walked back to his table. She watched him lean down to his mother, probably explaining that it wasn't going to work out. The old woman didn't seem to understand, but she patted his hand anyway. Elena stood there, her cleaning cloth still in her hand, frozen. That piece. Of all the pieces in the world, it had to be that one. She'd played that nocturne for her Juilliard audition. She'd performed it in her junior year recital. She could play it in her sleep. She hadn't touched a piano in 10 years. 10 years. Her fingers probably wouldn't even work right anymore. And in front of all these people? In front of a restaurant full of strangers? Her hands were already sweating just thinking about it. But that old woman, that piano teacher who didn't recognize her own family anymore, and that man, just wanting to give his mother one more moment of clarity, one more connection to who she used to be. Elena knew that feeling. She knew what it was like to lose yourself, to become someone you didn't recognize. Before she could overthink it, before fear could stop her, she walked over to where Tony was standing. "I can play it," she said quietly. Tony looked at her in surprise. "What?" "The Chopin piece. I know it, I can play it for her." Tony's eyebrows shot up. "Elena, I didn't know you played piano. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Elena said, though her voice shook slightly. "Let me just tell them, okay?" She walked over to table 12, her legs feeling strange and distant like they belonged to someone else. The man looked up as she approached. "Excuse me," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I heard you asking about the piano. I could play that piece for your mother if you'd like." "The Chopin Nocturne." The man's face transformed. "You play piano? Seriously?" "I'm pretty rusty," Elena said quickly, downplaying it because that felt safer somehow. "I haven't played in a long time, but I know that piece. I could try." "That would be incredible," the man said, standing up. "Please, yes. Thank you so much." The family was all looking at her now, hopeful and expectant. The old woman in the purple cardigan smiled at her, still with that vague, distant look in her eyes. Elena walked toward the piano in the corner. She could feel eyes following her from other tables. People were starting to notice that something was happening. Tony quickly asked the host to make an announcement that there would be a special musical performance for a birthday celebration. The restaurant gradually got quieter. Conversations dropped to whispers. People turned in their seats to see. Elena reached the piano and lifted the dust cover. The keys were yellowed with age, and a few of them had chips in the ivory. She sat down on the bench and it wobbled slightly. Her hands were trembling as she placed them in her lap. This was crazy. What was she doing? She was a waitress. She served food. She didn't perform anymore. That part of her life was over, dead and buried. But her hands moved to the keys anyway, almost on their own. They found the starting position, muscle memory from thousands of hours of practice coming back like magic. She looked back at the old woman in the purple cardigan. The woman was watching her now with more focus than before, like something in her recognized what was about to happen. Elena took a deep breath. Then another. The restaurant was completely silent now. She could hear her own heartbeat, feel the smooth keys under her fingertips. She thought about her father, sick in bed all those years ago. She thought about leaving Juilliard, packing up her dreams into cardboard boxes. She thought about every day of the last 10 years, every table served, every smile forced, every piece of herself she'd hidden away, and then she started to play. The first notes came out tentative, uncertain. Her fingers felt stiff, unfamiliar. But by the third measure, something shifted. The music started to flow. Her hands remembered what her mind had tried to forget. The nocturne in E-flat is a gentle piece, melancholy and sweet at the same time. It's the kind of music that sounds like longing, like remembering something beautiful that's gone. Elena had always loved it, even before Juilliard. Now, playing it after so many years of silence, it felt like she was playing her own story. Her fingers moved faster, more confident. The stiffness melted away. It was like meeting an old friend, someone who knew all your secrets. The music poured out of her, 10 years of held-back emotion flowing through her hands into the keys. She forgot about the restaurant, forgot about the people watching. It was just her and the piano and the music, the way it used to be, the way it was supposed to be. When she glanced up for just a moment, she saw the old woman's face, and everything had changed. The vague, distant look was gone. The woman's eyes were clear and bright, filled with tears. She was mouthing the melody, her hands moving slightly like she was playing along. She was back. The music had brought her back. Elena's fingers danced across the keys, and for the first time in 10 years, she felt like herself again. Really herself. Not the tired waitress who smiled on autopilot. Not the daughter who'd given up everything. Just Elena, the musician, doing what she was born to do. The middle section of the nocturne grew more complex, the notes cascading like water. Her right hand carried the melody while her left hand provided the gentle, rolling accompaniment. It was harder than she remembered. Her pinky finger cramped slightly and she had to adjust her wrist angle. But she pushed through, letting the music guide her. She could feel something happening in the room. It wasn't just quiet anymore. It was that special kind of silence that only happens when people are truly moved by something. The kind of silence that's actually full of emotion, heavy with it. Elena risked another glance at the birthday table. The old woman was crying now, tears running down her wrinkled cheeks. But she was smiling too, the biggest, most genuine smile. Her lips were moving and Elena realized she was humming along, perfectly in tune. Her daughter had her arm around her shoulders and she was crying too. The whole family was in tears. The man who'd asked about the piano was standing now, one hand over his mouth, watching his mother with an expression of pure wonder. Like he was seeing a miracle happen right in front of him. Elena's own eyes started to blur with tears, but she blinked them away. She couldn't mess this up, not now. She focused on the keys, on the music, on getting every note right. This moment mattered too much. The nocturne built toward its emotional peak, the melody climbing higher, more urgent. Elena's whole body moved with the music now, swaying slightly, lost in it. Her co-workers were watching from the kitchen doorway. Tony stood frozen by the host stand. Every single person in the restaurant had stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped everything. Then came the final section, where the melody returns, but softer, more resigned. Like saying goodbye to something beautiful. Elena played it with all the tenderness she had. Every note was a memory. Every chord was a piece of her heart that she'd locked away. When she played the final, fading notes, she let them ring out into silence. She held her hands above the keys for a moment, not quite ready to let go. The last note disappeared into the air, and for a few seconds nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the applause started. It began with the man at table 12 clapping hard and fast, his face wet with tears. His family joined in immediately. Then the couple at table 7 stood up, still clapping. Within seconds, the entire restaurant was on their feet. The sound was deafening, overwhelming. Elena stood up from the piano bench, her legs shaky. She didn't know what to do with her hands, where to look. She gave a small, awkward bow and tried to smile, but her face felt weird, like she'd forgotten how to arrange it properly. People were shouting things. Bravo! That was beautiful. Amazing. She saw her coworkers clapping too, their faces shocked. They'd worked with her for years and had no idea she could do this. The man from table 12 was walking toward her. He reached out and grabbed her hand in both of his, shaking it firmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what you just gave us. My mother, she hasn't been present like that in months. Did you see her face? She was really here, really with us." Elena looked past him at the old woman, who was being hugged by various family members. The clarity was already starting to fade from her eyes, the confusion creeping back in. But she was still smiling, still touching her chest like something important had happened there. She was a beautiful piano teacher, the man continued. She taught hundreds of students over the years. Music was everything to her. And now with the dementia, we've lost so much of her. But tonight, for those few minutes, we got her back. That's because of you. I'm glad I could help, Elena managed to say, her voice coming out scratchy. You're not just a waitress, are you? The man said, studying her face. Nobody plays like that without serious training. That was professional level. Concert level. Elena looked down at her apron, suddenly very aware of the marinara sauce stain near the pocket. I studied music a long time ago. It didn't work out. That's a shame, the man said. Real talent like that shouldn't be hidden away. He pressed something into her hand. She looked down and saw it was cash. A lot of cash. Please take it. For what you gave my mother tonight. No, I can't, Elena said, trying to give it back. Really, I was happy to do it. I insist, the man said firmly. Use it for something good. Before Elena could argue more, other customers started approaching. An older gentleman wanted to shake her hand. A young couple asked where she performed normally. A woman asked if she gave piano lessons. Elena felt overwhelmed, bombarded with attention she wasn't used to and didn't know how to handle. Tony rescued her, gently steering her toward the kitchen. Okay, folks, let's give her some space. Glad you enjoyed the performance. In the relative quiet of the kitchen, Elena leaned against the counter and tried to catch her breath. Her hands were still shaking. The cooks were staring at her like she'd grown a second head. Girl, what the hell? Said David, one of the line cooks she'd worked with for 5 years. You never told us you could play like that. It never came up, Elena said weakly. Never came up. David laughed in disbelief. That's like being a superhero and just never mentioning it. That was incredible. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. People kept looking at her differently, whispering and pointing. The family at table 12 left her a massive tip on top of what the man had already given her. When Elena counted everything at the end of the night, she'd made more in tips that one evening than she usually made in a week. But it wasn't the money that stuck with her. It was the feeling of playing again, of remembering who she used to be, of letting that part of herself out even just for a few minutes. She drove home in a daze, her hands still tingling from the piano keys. When she got to her apartment, she didn't turn on the TV like usual. She just sat on her bed in the dark, staring at nothing. What had she done? She'd spent 10 years carefully building walls around her past, protecting herself from the pain of what she'd lost. And tonight, she'd torn those walls down in front of a room full of strangers. She'd exposed the rawest, most vulnerable part of herself, and it had felt amazing. Terrifying, but amazing. Elena looked at her hands in the dim light coming through the window. These hands had served thousands of meals. But tonight, they'd made music again. They'd brought an old woman back to herself, even if just for a moment. They'd created something beautiful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tony. You were amazing tonight. Didn't know we had a celebrity on staff. Get some rest. Then another text from Veronica, one of the other servers. OMG, Elena. Someone posted a video of you playing on Instagram. It's already got like 500 likes. Elena's stomach dropped. A video? She grabbed her phone and opened Instagram, searching for Romano's restaurant. There it was. Multiple videos, actually, from different angles. Different customers had filmed her performance and posted it. She watched one of the videos, seeing herself from the outside. She looked small, sitting at that old piano in her stained apron, but the music that came out was huge, powerful. The camera shook slightly as whoever was filming got emotional. In the background, you could see the old woman's face transforming, coming alive. The comments were pouring in. This made me cry. Who is she? That waitress has serious talent. This is the most beautiful thing I've seen all year. Elena's phone kept buzzing. More texts. More notifications. The video was being shared. And shared again. People were tagging Romano's, asking about her. Asking for her name. She set the phone down, her heart pounding. This was getting out of control. She just wanted to help that old woman. She hadn't thought about videos or social media or any of this. But as she sat there in her dark apartment watching the views on the video climb higher and higher, something shifted inside her. Maybe the walls she'd built around her past weren't protecting her at all. Maybe they were just keeping her trapped. Maybe tonight wasn't an ending. Maybe somehow it was a beginning. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Regarding your piano performance at Romano's." Elena stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Whatever happened next, her quiet life was over. The music was out now, and there was no putting it back. Elena didn't sleep that night. She kept checking her phone, watching the numbers climb. 1,000 views. 5,000. 10,000. By 3 in the morning, the main video had over 50,000 views and was still going up. The comments kept coming in. Most of them were kind, amazed, supportive. But some made her uncomfortable. Why is someone with that much talent working as a waitress? What a waste. She must have really messed up her life. Those comments stung because they were kind of true. She had messed up in a way. Or life had messed her up. Either way, here she was. She kept thinking about that email. She'd read it 3 times before finally responding. It was from a local news station, asking if they could interview her. They wanted to know her story, how a waitress came to play classical piano like a professional. They made it sound like some kind of mystery that needed solving. Elena had politely declined. The last thing she wanted was to be on TV explaining her failures to strangers. But the reporter had written back, saying the story was inspiring, not sad. That people needed to hear it. Elena left that email unanswered. When she showed up for her Saturday shift at Romano's, everything felt different. The hostess looked at her with wide eyes. The other servers whispered when she walked by. Even the customers seemed to recognize her, though that might have been her imagination. "You're famous," Veronica said, cornering her by the drink station. "The video is everywhere. My mom called me this morning asking if I knew you. My mom doesn't even have Instagram." "It's not that big of a deal," Elena said, trying to downplay it. "Not a big deal. Elena, you have news stations calling. Romano's phone has been ringing all morning with people asking about you." Tony found her before the lunch rush started. "We need to talk," he said, and her stomach dropped. Was she in trouble somehow? Had she broken some rule by playing the piano? They went to his small office in the back. Tony sat down and gestured for her to take the other chair. "First of all," he said, "that was incredible last night. I had no idea you were that talented." "Thanks," Elena said carefully. "The thing is, this is turning into something bigger than any of us expected. We've had reporters calling. A couple of local news vans showed up this morning, and we're fully booked for tonight because people are hoping you'll play again." Elena's eyes widened. "What? No, I can't. That was just a one-time thing." Tony held up his hands. "I'm not asking you to perform regularly, but people are interested in you now, in your story, and honestly, the attention is good for the restaurant. I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to talk to at least one reporter. Get your side out there on your terms before they start making up stories." "I don't want to be a story," Elena said quietly. "I know, but you already are one. The question is whether you want to tell it yourself or let other people tell it for you." Elena left his office feeling sick to her stomach. She made it through her shift on autopilot, smiling mechanically at customers who kept asking if she was the piano girl from the video. Several people wanted selfies with her. It was exhausting. She was clearing a table when she noticed a familiar face. The man from the birthday party, the one whose mother she'd played for. He was sitting alone at a corner table, and when he saw her looking, he waved her over. "I hope you don't mind," he said as she approached. "I wanted to talk to you if you have a minute." Elena glanced around. The lunch rush was dying down. "Sure, I guess. I'm Vincent," he said, offering his hand. She shook it awkwardly. "I never properly introduced myself last night. I was too emotional." "It's okay. How's your mother doing?" Vincent's smile was sad but warm. "She's back to how she was before. Doesn't remember the dinner or the music. But my sister sent me a video that someone took, and when I showed it to her, just for a second I saw something in her eyes. Like a spark of recognition." He paused. "You gave us a gift last night. A memory we'll have forever, even if she won't." Elena felt tears prickling her eyes. "I'm glad. I've been watching the videos go viral," Vincent continued. "And I've been thinking about what you said last night. About studying music and it not working out. I'm curious what happened, if you don't mind me asking." Something about the way he asked made Elena want to answer. Maybe it was because he'd been so genuine with her about his mother. Maybe she was just tired of holding it all in, so she told him. About Juilliard, about her father's heart attack, about the medical bills and dropping out, about the 10 years that followed, watching her dreams fade in the rearview mirror while she served pasta and breadsticks. She told him things she'd never said out loud to anyone. Vincent listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Can I be honest with you?" he said finally. "Sure. I think you're scared. And I get it. You built a life that's small and safe because the big life hurt too much when it fell apart. But Elena, you're 32. You could have another 50 years ahead of you. Do you really want to spend all of them hiding?" His words hit her like a punch to the chest. "I'm not hiding, aren't you?" Vincent said gently. "You have this incredible gift, this thing that brings joy to people, that can literally bring someone back from the fog of dementia, and you've been keeping it locked away because you're afraid of being disappointed again." Elena looked down at her hands. "It's not that simple. I know it's not. Nothing ever is." Vincent reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "I don't usually do this, but I have connections in the music world. I know the director of the Portland Symphony. I know people at the concert hall. If you wanted to get back into music, really back into it, I could make some introductions." Elena stared at the card without taking it. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted, and because my mother taught piano for 40 years, and she would have done anything to help a student like you." He set the card on the table between them. "Think about it. No pressure, but the offer stands." After Vincent left, Elena picked up the card. It felt heavy in her hand, weighted with possibility. She slipped it into her apron pocket and tried to focus on her work. That evening, after her shift ended, she sat in her car in the parking lot and pulled out her phone. The videos had over 200,000 views now. People had started digging, trying to find out who she was. Someone had discovered that she'd attended Juilliard and posted about it. The narrative was writing itself. Former prodigy now works as Waitress. She saw another email had come in. This one from someone claiming to be a music blogger who wanted to feature her story. Another from a podcast about unusual life journeys. One from someone asking if she gave lessons. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. "Hello? Hi, is this Elena?" A woman's voice, professional and warm. "My name is Christine, and I'm calling from the Portland Symphony Orchestra. Vincent Morrison gave me your number. I hope that's okay." Elena's heart started pounding. Yes, that's fine. I've seen the videos of your performance at Romano's. It's extraordinary. Vincent tells me you studied at Juilliard. Is that correct?" "I didn't graduate," Elena said quickly. "That's all right. What matters is the playing. And what I saw in those videos is remarkable." Christine paused. "We have openings for substitute pianists with our orchestra. It's not a full-time position, but it would involve performing with the ensemble several times a month. Would you be interested in auditioning?" Elena couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. "I know this is sudden," Christine continued, "and I'm sure you need time to think about it. But we're holding auditions next Saturday. If you'd like to come in and play for us, I'd love to hear you in person. No commitment required. Just come play." "I haven't played seriously in 10 years, Elena managed to say. "Then you're overdue," Christine said warmly. "Here's my email. If you decide you want to audition, just send me a message and I'll get you all the details, okay?" "Okay," Elena whispered. After the call ended, she sat in her car for a long time watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink through her windshield. Her whole body felt electric, buzzing with something she hadn't felt in years. Fear, yes, but also something else. Hope. She pulled Vincent's business card out of her pocket and looked at it again. Then she looked at her hands, still smelling faintly of dish soap and garlic. These hands had served food for 10 years, but they remembered music. They remembered beauty. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe she hadn't missed her chance. Maybe the music video wasn't the end of her story. Maybe it was the beginning of chapter 2. Elena started her car and drove home, her mind racing. She had a week to decide. A week to figure out if she was brave enough to try again. When she got home, she walked straight to her childhood bedroom where her piano sat under its dusty blanket. She pulled the cover off slowly, revealing the keys beneath. They looked up at her like old friends, patient and waiting. She sat down and placed her fingers on the keys. And then, for the first time in 10 years in her own home, Elena started to play. Elena practiced every night that week. After her shifts at Romano's, she'd go home and sit at her piano until her fingers ached. The first few days were rough. Her hands cramped. She hit wrong notes. Her timing was off. But slowly, the music came back to her. It was like learning to speak a language she'd once been fluent in. The vocabulary was still there, buried deep in her muscle memory. She just had to dig it out, dust it off, and remember how to use it. She didn't tell anyone about the audition. Not her coworkers, not her mother, not anyone. It felt too fragile, too precious. Like if she said it out loud, it might disappear. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. Between taking orders and refilling drinks, her mind was playing through scales and arpeggios. She'd catch herself moving her fingers like she was playing invisible keys while she waited for food to come up from the kitchen. On Thursday, 3 days before the audition, something unexpected happened. Elena was wiping down tables at the end of her shift when Tony called her into his office again. "Someone started a GoFundMe for you," he said, turning his computer screen toward her. Elena stared at it in confusion. There was her picture, taken from one of the viral videos. The title read, "Help Elena Return to Music." Below it was a description written by someone she'd never met, explaining her story. How she'd sacrificed her dreams to take care of her family. How she'd been working as a waitress for 10 years. How she deserved a second chance. "I didn't ask for this," Elena said, her voice shaky. "I know, but people want to help. Look at the amount." Elena looked. Her eyes widened. In just 2 days, strangers on the internet had donated over $15,000. "That's not real," she whispered. "That can't be real. It's real. And it's still going up. People are sharing it everywhere." Tony leaned back in his chair. "The description says the money is to help clear your family's medical debt and give you a chance to pursue music again. I wanted you to know about it before it got bigger." Elena felt dizzy. $15,000. That would cover most of what her family still owed. It would give her breathing room, freedom, the thing she'd been chasing for 10 years. She went home that night and cried. Not sad tears, but the overwhelming kind that come when you don't know how to process too many emotions at once. Strangers were helping her. People she'd never met who owed her nothing were giving her money because they believed in her. Because a 3-minute video had touched something in them. On Friday, the day before the audition, Elena called her mother. She hadn't planned to tell her about any of it, but the words just came tumbling out. About the performance, the viral videos, the GoFundMe, the audition with the symphony. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I've been waiting 10 years for this call." "What do you mean? Baby, you think I didn't know? You think I couldn't see what giving up music did to you?" Her mother's voice cracked. "You were dying a little bit every day and it killed me to watch. But you did it for us, for your father, and I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. Mom, don't let me finish. Your father would want you to try. He'd want you to go to that audition. He'd want you to take this chance." She paused. "I want you to take it too. We're okay now. The debt is manageable. You've done enough. It's time to live your life again." Elena was full on sobbing now. "What if I'm not good enough anymore? What if I fail?" "Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least you didn't spend the rest of your life wondering what if." Saturday morning arrived too fast. Elena barely slept. She put on the one nice outfit she owned. Black pants and a blue blouse that she usually saved for job interviews she never went to. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. She looked terrified, but also alive in a way she hadn't been in years. The Portland Symphony building was beautiful, all old architecture and high ceilings. Elena felt small walking through the doors, like she was stepping into a world she no longer belonged to. A young woman at the front desk directed her to the audition room. Christine met her in the hallway, older than Elena had imagined, with kind eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. "Elena, thank you so much for coming. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Elena admitted. Christine laughed warmly. "Good, that means you care. Come on, let me show you the space." The audition room was smaller than Elena expected, with a beautiful grand piano in the center. 3 people sat at a table on the far side. Christine introduced them as members of the symphony's artistic staff. "We're going to keep this casual," Christine said. "Play whatever you'd like. Show us what you can do." Elena walked to the piano on legs that felt like rubber. She sat down on the bench and placed her hands on the keys. They were smooth and perfect, so much nicer than the old upright at Romano's or the worn piano at home. She closed her eyes and took 3 deep breaths. Then she started to play. She'd chosen a Beethoven sonata, one she'd performed at Juilliard. It was technically challenging. with fast passages that required precision and control. But it was also deeply emotional, full of drama and intensity. The first few measures were shaky. She could hear the nervousness in her playing, the stiffness in her fingers, but then something shifted. She stopped thinking about the people watching, stopped worrying about mistakes. She just played. And it was like coming home. The music poured out of her, 10 years of suppressed emotion channeled through her fingertips. All the frustration, the loss, the grief, the hope, it all went into the keys. She played like her life depended on it. Maybe in some way it did. When she finished, she held her hands above the keys, breathing hard. The room was silent. She turned to look at the judges, trying to read their faces. Christine was smiling. One of the other judges was writing notes. The third was leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, but he didn't look unhappy. That was remarkable, Christine said. Truly, there's some rust as you'd expect after time away. But the foundation is solid. More than solid. You have real artistry, Elena. The other judges nodded in agreement. They asked her a few questions about her training, her experience, what pieces she felt most comfortable with. Elena answered as honestly as she could, not trying to oversell herself. After about 10 minutes, Christine stood up. We have a few more auditions to get through, but I think I can safely say you'll be hearing from us very soon. And Elena? I really hope you say yes. Elena floated out of the building in a daze. She sat in her car and just breathed. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Whether she got the position or not, she'd tried. She'd faced her fear and played anyway. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tony. How'd it go? She smiled and typed back. I think it went okay. 3 hours later, while she was in the middle of her dinner shift at Romano's, Elena got the call. She stepped outside to take it, her heart pounding. Elena, it's Christine. I wanted to be the first to tell you. We'd love to offer you a position as a substitute pianist with the Portland Symphony. Are you interested? Elena leaned against the brick wall of the restaurant, tears streaming down her face. Yes, absolutely yes. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. The GoFundMe ended up raising over $30,000, enough to completely clear her family's medical debt with money left over. Elena used some of it to buy better work clothes and get her old piano properly tuned. She kept her job at Romano's but reduced her hours. The symphony work didn't pay enough to live on yet, but it was a start. She performed her first concert on a Tuesday night in front of 300 people. Her mother was in the audience, crying with pride. Vincent was there too with his family. Even some of her co-workers came. Romano's started advertising live piano Fridays, and Elena would play for an hour during dinner service once a week. The restaurant was packed on those nights, and Elena didn't mind. She was sharing her gift with people who appreciated it, making their meals a little more special. But the real magic happened 6 months later. Elena organized a benefit concert to raise money for families struggling with medical debt. She called it Second Chances and invited other musicians who'd overcome obstacles to perform. The concert hall was full. Elena played the Chopin Nocturne in E-flat, the piece that had started everything, and in the front row sat Vincent and his family, including his mother in her purple cardigan. The old woman didn't understand where she was or what was happening, but when Elena started to play, she smiled. As Elena's fingers moved across the keys, she thought about the journey that had led her here. The sacrifice, the loss, the 10 years in the wilderness. It had all seemed like such a waste at the time. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe she'd needed those years to understand what music really meant, to appreciate the gift she'd been given. She'd been a waitress who played piano. Now she was a pianist who sometimes waited tables. It was a small difference in words, but a huge difference in identity. The best part was that she got to keep both worlds. She still served food at Romano's, still knew all the regular customers by name. But she also performed with the symphony, taught piano lessons on Sunday afternoons, and played at weddings and events. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous beyond those viral videos that still occasionally circulated, but she was happy, really truly happy, and that was worth more than anything. After the benefit concert ended and everyone had gone home, Elena sat alone at the piano in the empty hall. She played softly just for herself. Not Chopin or Beethoven this time, but a simple melody she'd written herself. It was tentative and imperfect, but it was hers. She'd spent 10 years believing her story was over. Turns out it was just the intermission. The second act was just beginning, and it was going to be beautiful.